Hi guys. Okay, so we're going to start with part 6 of the Calumet County Sheriff's Department police reports. This is a report by John Dietering on November 4th, again about this phone number that Teresa made her last fax from into Auto Trader on the early morning hours of October 31st. Dietering made contact with the Green Bay Police Department, asked them to check in-house records for this phone number. They advised us at one point that a subject named something was shown in their in-house computer as having that particular phone number. He attempted to make contact, did not make contact with this person. Like I said, later on we'll get into what that was all about, because it turns out to be a little less interesting than it seemed. They did do a lot of investigation on it, though. That's for sure. They did try to figure that one out. And then we're going on to another report by investigator John Dietering on November 4th. Dietering did speak with a representative of Singular Wireless Legal Department. The representative advised me that they had received a facsimile transmittal for the global positioning system coordinates, as well as the digital number recorder request on Teresa Halbach's phone. The representative indicated that the court order that they had received did not cover any historical data as far as calls placed from Teresa Halbach's cell phone or calls received by Teresa Halbach's cell phone. She stated that we could obtain subscriber information with a subpoena, and that a court order would be required to get information regarding cellular towers that the calls were completed to. He said that he did fax out the required documentation declaring this to be exigent circumstances. So, important stuff. He's needing to get that information. Alright, so here another report by John Dietering on November 4th about this phone number that Teresa faxed her last fax to Auto Trader from. Did make contact with SBC Security regarding this phone number. Was advised that once again there was no subscriber information shown for this phone number, and that in fact the phone number had been disconnected for some time. That's the part that makes it really interesting, is why this is a disconnected phone number. It's not in service. How did she make her last fax to Auto Trader from this number? The representative I spoke with did indicate once again that the last known address was the address that they had already tried to make contact with, and that was the person that they talked to that didn't know anything about it and did not have that phone number any longer. The representative indicated that this could possibly be a ported number, and further indicated that anyone can reflect any phone number they choose as the originating phone number for a facsimile transmittal. That's interesting. What they just said right there, that anyone can reflect any phone number they choose as the originating phone number for a facsimile transmittal. That's really interesting. So actually looked that up and found out that that is true. You can actually do that with calls and with faxes. You can make it appear that it's coming from a different number. I thought that this might have been possible, but I couldn't figure out why Teresa might have done that. It was just really weird to me. Alright, here's another report from John Dietering on November 5th. On Saturday, November 5th, Dietering did deliver a compact laptop computer to Detective Michael Veely at Grand Chute Police Department. The purpose of this transfer of the computer was to have Veely download the computer and make a mirror image so that he could analyze forensically what was on the laptop computer. This was obviously Teresa's laptop. And this, I just thought that this was a little bit interesting. The computer had been taken on Friday, November 4th by investigator Wiegert, and Wiegert had given the laptop to me, Dietering, in the evening hours of Friday, November 4th, for me to transport to Grand Chute Police Department. The computer remained in my care and custody from the time it was turned over to me by Wiegert on the 4th until the 5th, the next day. So, all right, here we go. This is where we find something else out about here. This is a report by John Dietering on November 5th. On Saturday, November 5th, Sheriff Jerry Poggle and Dietering did arrive at Teresa Halbach's residence. We did send a facsimile from Teresa Halbach's fax machine to the Calumet County Sheriff's Department in order to attempt to determine whether Teresa had programmed her fax machine to reflect the telephone number of this mystery number they've been trying to find this whole time on her fax machine. We did fax a test to the Calumet County Sheriff's Department, and the telephone number shown on the from portion of the fax reflected that same phone number. This is the same number that was reflected on the facsimile sent to Auto Trader on October 31st in the early morning hours. This reflects that Teresa Halbach's fax machine is in fact programmed to reflect this mystery number, and that she in fact did send the fax to Auto Trader on October 31st, probably from her residence. The question is, did Teresa set it up this way, or did Auto Trader provide it to her already set up this way with this phone number? I don't know who did it and why they would do that. I still think that it's interesting, definitely, but there's the mystery solved. The fax actually did come from Teresa's fax machine in her home. So that phone number, that crazy phone number that they've been running all over looking for and talking to people, turned out to have been right there from her house. So, mystery solved. This is a report from John Dietering on November 5th, speaking with David Beach. David Beach advised me that he is a cousin of Teresa Halbach. He came up yesterday in order to attempt to locate her. Let's see. Beach indicated that on November 4th, he stopped by Avery Auto Salvage and Towing and spoke with Stephen in person. He advised Stephen that Beach's cousin was the missing individual. And then they talked a little bit about what Stephen saw that day when she was there. According to David, Stephen Avery indicated that he had shown the photographer a couple of vehicles and she took some photos. And then he didn't know her next stop, and then when she left the property, she made a left. He indicated that he went to a second towing company in Maribel, and they indicated that they had not seen Teresa. I'm not sure why he went there, but anyway, Beach described Stephen Avery as being calm and concerned. He stated that he answered all of Beach's questions and did not appear to be holding anything back. Beach described Avery as being very forthright. I think that's pretty important coming from one of Teresa's own relatives, interviewing Stephen, basically, who is saying the same thing that that the other officers who interviewed Stephen before he was arrested, when they went out to talk with him. You know, of course, he told him everything he knew. He didn't seem to be holding anything back. He wasn't angry or upset. He seemed concerned and he wanted to help, and he was very cooperative, and let them go into his house and look around if they wanted, all without search warrants and whatever. So it's nice to see that one of her own relatives who talked with Stephen says the same thing. All right, this is a report from Sheriff Poggle on November 5th. On Saturday, November 5th, Sheriff Poggle met with Investigator Wiegert and Dietering at the Sheriff's Department. Sheriff Poggle received information that several of Teresa's family and friends were planning a search of the Mishicot area. I informed informed Investigator Wiegert and Dietering that we should speak with Stephen Avery to ascertain if he would allow us to search the salvage yard and we could utilize his friends and families to expedite the search. This is interesting because when we get into this later on, apparently this is already being done. Pam Sturm and Nicole Sturm are already out there on the property at this very time, looking for her car. We were about to leave the sheriff's department to travel to Avery Auto Salvage when the dispatcher summoned me into the dispatch center. She was on the phone with Pam Sturm. She gave the phone to Sheriff Poggle. He spoke with Pamela, indicated she is a friend of Teresa Hallbach. Pam stated she and her daughter Nicole Sturm were at the Avery Auto Salvage and had found the RAV4 in the salvage yard. So I just think that that's interesting. Just as they were about to go out to ask Stephen Avery for permission to allow the volunteer searchers, her friends and family, to come out there to search to help expedite the whole process of looking for her, they were already there. They're already out there and doing it. From what I understood, like when you're watching the documentary, it says the boss has changed plans. The boss now wants us to go out and ask the Averys if it's okay to have these people come onto the property to search. So that's right there in a call, like on the documentary. So I think it's interesting that this Poggle's report acts like, well, we hadn't done this yet, and we were going to be the ones to go out and do it, not that we want it done, we want someone else to do it. We're actually going to be the ones to go out and ask for permission. Something's not right with this. Investigator Wiegert and Dietering and I then left the sheriff's department and responded to Avery Auto Salvage. We arrived at approximately 11:10 a.m. We were met by David Remaker and Lieutenant Todd Herman of Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department. Detective Remaker informed us he had confirmed the VIN on the vehicle in the Avery Auto Salvage Yard as belonging to Teresa Hallbach. Also on the scene was an individual identified as Earl Avery, as well as the two individuals who notified the department of the discovery of Pam and Nicole Sturm. Pam informed us that she had obtained verbal permission from Earl Avery to go onto the salvage yard, and it was at that time she located the RAV4. Okay. Shortly after our arrival, Deputy Inspector Greg Shutter of the Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department also arrived on the scene. Shutter informed me that Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department is currently involved in a $36 million lawsuit with Stephen Avery. I'm kind of curious why this guy would be the one reporting that and not the sheriff reporting it to the other sheriff, Who is this Shutter guy? Deputy Inspector Greg Shutter. I don't know. I've heard his name, but not much information on him. But anyway, he's the one apparently to inform Sheriff Poggle that there's this conflict of interest, possibly. To prevent a conflict of interest, Shutter asked me if our agency would consent to being the lead investigative agency concerning the search for Teresa Hallbach following the discovery of her vehicle on the Avery property. I informed Shutter I understood his concern, and I indicated I would agree to our agency being the lead investigative agency concerning this matter. I then placed a cell phone call to Jim Warren, administrator for the state of Wisconsin DCI. I explained the situation to Mr. Warren, and I requested the assistance of DCI. Mr. Warren informed me he would have DCI agents respond to our location. He also indicated he would contact the Wisconsin State Crime Lab and request that their mobile unit also respond to our location. DCI Special Agent James Fassbender arrived on the scene, as well as other agents from DCI. Because Investigator Wiegert was the initial investigator assigned to this complaint, I named him and Special Agent Fassbender as the lead investigators for this investigation. And then it goes on to show all of the call between Pam Sturm and the sheriff and Wiegert. And then during the call, Pam Sturm asked if there was a Lemieux Toyota sticker or something like that on the back of Teresa's car. And they didn't know that information, so they contacted Karen Halbach and asked her. She didn't know that information, so she called back a few minutes later to let them know. And this is what Sheriff Poggle says. I did receive a phone call back from Karen Halbach indicating that there would, in fact, be a Lemieux Toyota sticker located on the back of Teresa's vehicle. See, and I thought that that was interesting because so many people have talked about, oh my God, it's not the same car, it's like not the same car and all this stuff. Okay, it is the same car, and there. You know, somebody would have to go through an awful lot of trouble to just to get that sticker replaced, you know. To put it on there in the first place would be too much of a pain to go through. So anyway, I've gone round and round and round and round and repetitively gone round and round with people about the car not being the same car. And that's just one of the things that keeps coming up. The sticker. The sticker is one of those things that would not just, you know, it's not like it's easy to find a replacement car. And it's definitely not easy to find a sticker for the exact same car, you know, or a car that already has a sticker or whatever. There's just too many things, and that's not important. But anyway, so I'm going to end this video, and it looks like I've got maybe one more to do from the documents from all this so far, and I'll be reading some more tomorrow and hopefully doing some more videos in the next day or two about what I've come across. Thanks for watching.